The lecture hall on Station Primus hummed with the usual discordant symphony of 17 different species attempting to coexist in one academic space. Professor Varnenkoth clicked his mandibles together nervously, triple-checking the security protocols for what had to be the 100th time that morning. Teaching xenobiology was already challenging enough without adding a human to the mix, but the council had insisted. Cultural exchange, they said. Building bridges between species, they said. Nobody mentioned that bridges sometimes collapse under weight they were never designed to bear. Settle down, Varnenkoth announced, his translator crackling slightly. Today we continue our examination of species classification by environmental survivability metrics. The human sat in the back row. Of course she did. They always seemed to gravitate toward positions where they could observe everything. Her name tag read, Emma Torres, and she looked painfully ordinary by human standards. Average height, brown hair pulled into something called a ponytail, wearing their typical primitive textile coverings. Varnenkoth had spent 3 sleepless cycles reviewing human behavior profiles, and every single report contained the same warning in bold text. Do not underestimate. Easy to say. Harder to internalize when the species in question looked so soft and breakable. Beside Emma sat Quilix, a Bravathi whose crystalline exoskeleton refracted the station's artificial lighting into tiny rainbows. Quilix had been complaining about the human's presence since day one. It is unseemly, Quilix had chittered during their last break period. Deathworld primitives do not belong in academic institutions. They belong in containment facilities. Emma had smiled at that. Just smiled. Somehow that was worse than if she had argued. Now then, Varnenkoth continued, pulling up a holographic display, let us review the standard classification system. Class 1 worlds, minimal threats, stable ecosystems, low gravity. These produce species with limited defensive capabilities but highly developed intellectual and social structures. The Bravathi, for example, evolved on a Class 1 world. Quilix's plates gleamed with pride. Class 2 worlds introduce moderate challenges. Predation, weather variance, resource competition. Most spacefaring civilizations originate from Class 2 environments. The Velkaran, the Throxians, my own species, the Mantari. Emma raised her hand. Actually raised it, like they were in some ancient educational facility instead of a university-level xenobiology course. Yes, Miss Torres. Varnenkoth asked, trying to keep the tremor out of his voice synthesizer. What class is Earth? Her voice was steady, curious, containing absolutely zero threat. Which according to the reports meant precisely nothing. The entire lecture hall went quiet. Even the Javarians, who communicated primarily through subsonic frequencies that drove everyone else mad, stopped their endless humming. Varnenkoth's primary and secondary stomachs both clenched simultaneously. Earth is designated as a Class 12 world. I see, Emma said pleasantly. And what's the highest classification? Class 12? She nodded once, then settled back in her seat like she had just learned that her favorite beverage came in blue instead of green. Like it meant nothing. Like she did not understand the implications. But she understood. Oh. Ancestors preserve them all. She definitely understood. Quilix's plates clattered together in what might have been laughter or possibly horror, the emotional spectrum being rather limited for crystalline species. You must comprehend, human, that your world is rated as fundamentally incompatible with sentient life. The gravity alone would crush most species. The atmospheric oxygen content is toxically high. Your planet harbors millions of species specifically evolved to kill and consume other organisms. You have weather patterns that generate enough kinetic energy to level cities. Your own star bathes your surface in radiation that would sterilize most Class 1 worlds within solar cycles. Yeah, Emma agreed amiably. Australia's pretty rough. Several students made choking sounds. The Velkaran representative, whose name Varnenkoth could never properly pronounce, extended all 6 eye stalks in alarm. Australia? That is your planet's designation? No, Emma laughed, and the sound was genuinely warm, genuinely friendly. Australia's just one continent. We've got 7. Well, 6 if you don't count Antarctica, but I figure we should count Antarctica. Your death planet has multiple distinct ecological zones. The Velkarin's translator struggled with the rising pitch of panic in the original speech. Each potentially hosting unique lethal organisms, pretty much. Vonkov decided intervention was necessary before Quilix's exoskeleton vibrated itself into powder. Perhaps we should move on to cellular biology. The mechanisms by which various species process nutrients would make for fascinating comparative study. I have a question, Quilix interrupted, which was extraordinarily rude by Bravathi standards, but forgivable given the circumstances. If Earth is so lethally hostile, how did your species develop complex civilization? Surely the energy requirements for mere survival would prevent technological advancement. Emma tilted her head, considering. I guess we got really good at not dying, plus we kind of work together. Humans are super social. We live in groups, share resources, take care of each other. When everything wants to kill you, teamwork becomes pretty essential. Cooperation as survival mechanism, Vonkov mused, making notes on his datapad. Fascinating. Most Deathworld species tend towards solitary territorial behavior patterns. Oh, we're territorial too, Emma said. Just, about our groups instead of individual spaces. Somebody threatens my family, my friends, my pack. She shrugged, the gesture somehow conveying volumes. That doesn't end well for them. Pack. She had said pack. Like they were animals. Like they still operated on base instinctual levels, despite their spaceflight capabilities and quantum computers. The lecture continued, though Vonkov noticed his usual passionate delivery had degraded into nervous rambling. He covered respiratory systems, circulatory variations, even touched briefly on reproductive strategies, which always made the Throxian students uncomfortable. Emma took notes diligently, asked intelligent questions, and gave absolutely no indication that she was anything other than a model student. That should have been comforting. It was not. Break period arrived with the blessed relief of a rain shower on a desert world. Students scattered immediately, most giving Emma's section of the hall a wide berth. Vonkov gathered his materials, trying not to watch as Emma stood, stretched and pulled out some kind of nutrient bar from her pack. Quilix, demonstrating either remarkable courage or remarkable stupidity, approached the human directly. I want you to understand something, Quilix said, plates rattling with agitation. Your presence here is a courtesy extended by the Council. Nothing more. This institution has standards. We do not admit primitives simply because they possess rudimentary spaceflight. Emma unwrapped her food slowly, carefully. Okay, that is your response. Just okay? I mean, what do you want me to say? Emma took a bite, chewed thoughtfully. You've got your opinions. You're entitled to them. Doesn't really affect me. It should affect you. You are a representative of your species. Do you not care that we view humans as barely civilized barbarians? Not particularly. Emma swallowed, took another bite. See, here's the thing, Quilix. You're from a Class 1 world. That means your entire evolutionary history happened in essentially paradise. No major predators, stable climate, abundant resources. You never had to fight for survival. You never had to develop weapons, strategies, the ability to track threats across kilometers of hostile terrain. You are intellectually brilliant, because that is what your environment rewarded. Quilix's plates went completely still, which meant either deep thought or imminent violence. With Bravathi, those states were functionally identical. But me, Emma continued, my ancestors survived ice ages, megafauna extinctions, volcanic winters, plagues that killed half our population. We climbed to the top of the food chain on a planet actively trying to murder us, and we did it by being smarter, meaner, and more stubborn than everything else. So when you call me primitive, when you suggest I do not belong here, she smiled again. That same unsettling smile. I think about all the ways I could make you stop talking, and then I do not do any of those things. Because civilization... The temperature in the lecture hall seemed to drop several degrees. Quilix backed away slowly, plates clicking in an erratic pattern that Vonkov recognized as fear response. You threaten me. in an academic facility. This is unacceptable. I will report this to security, to the council. I didn't threaten you, Emma said calmly. I just shared my thought process. Very different things. But hey, you do what you need to do. She walked away then, heading toward the refreshment station, leaving Quilix vibrating with rage and terror. Varnkoff's translator picked up a soft muttering from the Jovarian corner. Told you. Deathworlders were unstable. This will end badly. Mark my oscillations. This will end very, very badly. The professor could not disagree. 3 cycles later, everything went sideways in ways nobody could have predicted. It started with an alarm, not the gentle chiming that indicated schedule changes or minor system malfunctions. No, this was the soul-scraping shriek that meant catastrophic failure, imminent danger, evacuate immediately if you enjoyed continuing to exist. Varnkoff's class had been reviewing genetic modification ethics when the station's gravity generators failed. Not fluctuated, not hiccuped. Failed completely, instantly, throwing 17 species and 1 human into sudden free fall. Remain calm, Varnkoff shouted, which was spectacularly unhelpful advice when students were ricocheting off walls like organic projectiles. Secure yourselves to fixed structures, activate emergency suits. The Brivathi students, being crystalline and therefore inertially challenged, fared worst. Quilix pinwheeled past, plates chiming discordantly, gaining rotational momentum with each impact. The Velkarin managed slightly better, eye stalks wrapping around anything stationary. The Throxians, being gaseous, just sort of diffused into corners and vibrated with distress. And Emma? Emma grabbed a desk, oriented herself, and pushed off toward the emergency supply locker with the precision of someone who had trained extensively in zero-gravity environments. How? Varnkoff managed to gasp as he clung desperately to his podium. How do you know zero-G maneuvering? Grew up on Europa Station? Emma called back, already distributing emergency tethers to flailing students. Earth gravity's about 2.5 times higher than standard. Most of us train off-world because it's easier. She caught Quilix mid-spin, arrested the Brivathi's momentum, and clipped a safety line to the nearest support beam. You're okay? Just breathe. Well, process atmosphere. Whatever you do. The overhead lighting failed next, plunging everything into darkness, except for emergency markers that provided approximately 0 useful illumination. Varnkoff's species possessed decent low-light vision, but even he struggled to track the chaos. Then came the sound. A grinding, tearing screech of metal stressed beyond tolerance. Something very large and very important had just broken very badly. Hull breach. Someone screamed. Varnkoff thought maybe the Jovarian, hard to tell when everyone was screaming. Section 7. Cascading failure. Emergency bulkheads not responding. Which meant they had maybe 60 seconds before atmosphere vented and everyone died. Emma moved. Not frantically, not panicked. She moved with the fluid efficiency of a predator closing on prey, pushing off walls, redirecting trajectory with minimal effort, reaching the manual bulkhead controls in maybe 5 seconds. Her hands worked the emergency panel, fingers flying across alien interfaces. It is biometrically locked. Quilix wailed. Requires Mantari administrative clearance. We cannot. The panel sparked. Smoked. Emma had jammed something metallic into the access port and was twisting hard enough that the metal shrieked. Always a mechanical override, she grunted, muscles straining. Always. The bulkheads slammed shut 3 seconds before the hull breach reached their section. The sudden pressure differential threw everyone forward, then back, then into a tumbling mass of tangled limbs and appendages. Emergency lighting finally activated, revealing a lecture hall that looked like it had been decorated by particularly violent interior designers. Students hung from tethers, moaning, furniture drifted in lazy orbits. Varnkoff himself was somehow upside down relative to the floor, though in zero gravity that designation meant little. Emma floated in the center of the chaos, breathing hard, holding a piece of twisted metal that might have been part of a structural support beam. She had not used the emergency tools. She had not accessed the proper override protocols. She had simply broken the panel through applied force and improvisation. "Everyone okay?" she asked, voice steady despite obvious exertion. "Anyone injured? Anyone leaking?" "Bravathi don't leak, right? Quilix, you good?" Quilix's plates made a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. You saved us. You Deathworld primitive savage, somehow saved us all." "Yeah, well." Emma released the twisted metal, let it drift away. "Class ended. Didn't want anyone dying on my watch." The station's secondary systems kicked in gradually. Gravity returned in stuttering increments, lowering everyone back to the floor with varying degrees of grace. Emergency bulkheads secured properly. Backup power restored lighting and life support. Varnon Koth finally managed to uncoil himself from his podium, checking for damage. Nothing broken, remarkably. "Report," he croaked. "What happened? Why did primary systems fail?" The answer came through every speaker simultaneously, delivered in the flat, mechanical tones that meant bad news. "Security alert. Hostile infiltration detected. Sabotage confirmed. All personnel proceed to designated safe zones immediately." "This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Emma's expression shifted. The pleasant student mask dropped away, revealing something older, harder, infinitely more dangerous underneath. "Sabotage," she repeated. During an academic cycle, when the station's population density is higher, her eyes tracked across the room, calculating, assessing. "That's not random mechanical failure. That's coordinated attack." "Attack?" Van Koth's voice climbed an octave. "Who would attack an educational facility? What possible strategic value?" "Soft target," Emma said. "Multiple species, young ones. Take out the future generation, cripple your enemy long term. Classic terrorism playbook." She moved toward the door, checking it manually. "Sealed from outside. We're locked in." Quilix made a sound like breaking glass. "Locked in? We are trapped? In a compromised section? With hostiles aboard? Looks like. But we are academics. Non-combatants. This violates every civilized convention. The Council will—" "The Council is probably dealing with their own problems right now," Emma interrupted. "Not unkindly, just pragmatically. We need to assume we're on our own. At least until security sorts this out." Van Koth's secondary stomach tried to digest his primary stomach. "What do we do? Our species are not designed for combat. We have no weapons, no training, no—" Emma looked at him. Really looked, with eyes that had tracked predators across ancient plains, that had calculated survival odds in environments where a single mistake meant death. "Professor," she said quietly, "your species aren't designed for combat. Mine absolutely is. And despite everything, despite all his academic knowledge and cultural sensitivity training, Van Koth felt something very primal spike through his nervous system. He felt like prey. The lecture hall settled into the kind of silence that usually preceded either profound revelation or spectacular disaster. Emma stood by the sealed door, ear pressed against the metal, listening with an intensity that made Van Koth's skin prickle. The other students huddled together in species-specific clusters, which was probably instinctive but definitely not helpful. "Okay," Emma said finally, stepping back from the door. "I can hear movement. Multiple individuals, coordinated patterns, non-standard equipment signatures. Definitely hostiles. Definitely armed, probably scanning for survivors." She turned to face the class, and her expression had gone completely calm, which, according to every human behavioral study Van Koth had ever read, was absolutely terrifying. "We need to make some decisions, and we need to make them fast." Quilix's plates rattled. "Decisions? What decisions? We wait for security. We hide. We do not engage with armed terrorists because we are civilized beings who attend universities instead of combat training facilities." "Sure," Emma agreed, "we can do that. Hide, stay quiet, hope they pass us by or security reaches us first." She paused, tilted her head. "Of course they already know we are in here. The door's sealed from outside, which means someone triggered the lockdown manually. They are not scanning for survivors. They are making sure we cannot escape before they decide what to do with us. The Jovarian representative, whose name translated roughly to humming echo of distant thunder, but whom everyone called Hum for obvious reasons, pulsed with distress. What could they possibly want with students? We have no strategic value, no political leverage. You are hostages, Emma said simply. 17 different species, all from council-aligned worlds, all conveniently trapped in one location. That is significant leverage. Or, she paused, something dark flickering behind her eyes. You are witnesses to whatever they are really doing here, which means you are liabilities. Vankoth's translator struggled to process the implications through his rising panic. Liabilities? You suggest they would simply eliminate us. Depends on their objective. If this is political theater, they keep us alive for bargaining. If this is a targeted strike to destabilize the council, they tie up loose ends. Emma moved away from the door, scanning the lecture hall with systematic precision. Either way, sitting here makes us completely dependent on their decision-making. I personally prefer having options. Options, Quilix repeated, the word dripping with something between scorn and hysteria. What options? You said yourself they are armed. We are academics. The power differential is insurmountable. Emma smiled, not the pleasant student smile. Something else entirely. Something with teeth. Power differential. That is interesting phrasing. See, on Earth, we have this concept called asymmetric warfare. It is what you do when you are outgunned, outnumbered, and everyone thinks you are going to lose. You use the environment. You use surprise. You use the fact that your enemy underestimates you. She gestured around the lecture hall. This room is full of resources. They do not know we have. Starting with me. The Velkarin, whose eye stalks had been tracking Emma's movements like targeting sensors, spoke for the first time since the crisis began. You are suggesting offensive action against unknown numbers of armed hostiles, using a classroom full of terrified students as your tactical assets. No, Emma corrected. I am suggesting we prepare defensive positions and potential escape routes. But if they decide to come through that door with violent intentions, she shrugged, then yes, I am suggesting we make them regret that decision very, very thoroughly. Vankoth's academic instincts finally overrode his survival instincts, which was probably stupid, but at least felt professionally appropriate. Miss Torres, I must ask, what exactly is your background? Your application listed you as a xenobiology student, but your tactical knowledge suggests military training. Oh, I am a xenobiology student, Emma said cheerfully, already moving around the room examining furniture, equipment, anything that could be repurposed. But yeah, I also did 6 years with Earth's expeditionary forces before transitioning to academic studies. Figured understanding alien biology would help with, not accidentally starting interstellar incidents. She paused beside a desk, testing its weight. Ironically, here we are. 6 years, Hume hummed, the subsonic frequencies making everyone's bones ache. 6 years of human military service. That is concerning. Why, Emma asked, genuinely curious. Because human military operations are legendary. Humans' volume increased with distress. The siege of Outpost 17. The defense of the Martian colonies. The Javarians' vocalization dissolved into incoherent buzzing. Emma's expression softened slightly. Hey, it is okay. Those were extreme situations. This is just some station raiders who probably expected easy targets. Different scenario entirely. Different how? Quilix demanded. Those operations, we were trying to minimize casualties and preserve infrastructure. This? Emma lifted the desk, testing various angles. This is just keeping my classmates alive. Much simpler objective, much fewer restrictions. Somehow that did not sound reassuring. The next 10 minutes passed in a strange blur of organized chaos. Emma directed students with the calm efficiency of someone who had done this before, turning an academic lecture hall into something approaching a defensive position. Desks became barricades. Equipment racks became potential weapons. The Throxians, being gaseous, were stationed near air vents, where they could monitor movement through the station's circulation system. "I feel ridiculous," Quilix muttered, crouched behind an overturned table while clutching a broken equipment stand. "We are supposed to be scholars, not soldiers." "Scholars can fight," Emma said, checking the door again. "Fighting is just problem-solving, with higher stakes and less time. You are all intelligent beings. You can adapt. But we are not violent. We are not predatory. We do not have your Deathworld aggression." Emma glanced back, and her expression was complicated. "You know what? That is fair. You should not have to do this. None of you signed up for combat. You came here to learn about biology and make connections across species lines and maybe figure out your thesis topics." She moved to the center of the room, addressing everyone. "So here is what we are going to do. You all stay back, stay quiet, stay safe. If shooting starts, you get down and you stay down. Do not try to be heroes. Do not try to help, just survive. That is your only job, surviving." "And what will you be doing?" Varnkoth asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "My job," Emma said simply, "which is making sure you can do yours." The door exploded inward, approximately 3 seconds later. Not metaphorically, not gradually. The entry panel overrode with a shriek of tortured electronics. The locking mechanism blew apart in a shower of sparks, and the door itself flew across the room with enough force to embed itself in the far wall. Through the smoking opening came 4 figures in combat armor, weapons raised, moving with the synchronized precision of professional soldiers. Or at least, they started moving with professional precision. Emma hit the first one before Varnkoth's brain even registered she had moved. One moment she was standing in the center of the room. The next she was somehow behind the lead hostile, one arm wrapped around their helmet, wrenching sideways with a sound like breaking branches. The hostile went down hard, weapon clattering away. The second hostile swung their rifle toward Emma. Never made it. She had already grabbed the first hostile's fallen weapon, not to shoot but to swing like a club directly into the second hostile's knees. Armor could stop energy blasts. Armor was significantly less effective against kinetic impacts from someone who grew up in 2.5 times standard gravity. The third and fourth hostiles finally started firing. Energy bolts seared through the air, burning atmosphere, leaving ozone stink and scorched walls. Emma moved between them like water, like smoke, never where the targeting systems predicted. She rolled under one burst, came up inside the third hostile's guard, and did something with her elbow that made a sound Varnkoth would unfortunately remember for the rest of his life. The fourth hostile backed toward the door, weapon tracking desperately. "Contact. We have active resistance. Requesting backup. Target is. Emma threw the equipment stand. Not at the hostile, at their weapon. The impact knocked the rifle sideways just as it fired, sending an energy bolt into the ceiling instead of into Emma's chest. She closed the distance in 2 strides, grabbed the hostile's arm, and performed what human martial artist apparently called a joint lock. The hostile screamed. The weapon fell. 12 seconds. 4 armed hostiles, neutralized in 12 seconds. Emma stood in the center of the room, breathing slightly harder than normal, surrounded by groaning bodies in expensive combat armor. She picked up one of the fallen rifles, examined it briefly, then looked at her classmates. "Everyone okay? Anyone hit?" Silence. Absolute, complete, stunned silence. "Okay, good." Emma moved to the door, peering into the corridor. "We have maybe 2 minutes before their backup arrives. These 4 were just the advanced team." She turned back, and her expression was apologetic. "I am really sorry about this. I know it is disturbing, but we need to move now, and we need to move fast." Quilix's plates were vibrating so rapidly they produced an almost musical tone. You just 4 armed soldiers. 12 seconds. 14. Actually," Emma corrected. "I am rusty. Academy life makes you slow." She gestured toward the door. "Come on, stay behind me, stay quiet, and if I say run, you run. No questions, no hesitation, just run." Understand. Varnkoth's legs moved before his brain fully processed the command. Apparently survival instincts overrode academic analysis when Deathworld humans started casually dismantling armed strike teams. The other students followed, bunching together, moving through the door into a corridor that looked like something from a disaster hollow. Emergency lighting cast everything in red and shadow. Smoke drifted from damaged systems. In the distance, energy weapons discharged with sharp cracking sounds. The station's AI kept broadcasting evacuation orders that nobody could follow, because the evacuation routes were either sealed or compromised. Emma led them through the chaos with the confidence of someone reading a map only she could see. She avoided main corridors, stuck to maintenance passages, moved with a silence that should have been impossible for someone wearing standard civilian clothing. Twice they encountered hostiles. Twice Emma gestured for the students to wait, then disappeared into shadows and returned 30 seconds later, alone, not bothering to explain what happened to whoever she had found. "How many of them are there?" Hum hummed quietly, keeping pace despite having no legs. "At least 30, probably more," Emma said, not slowing. "Professional outfit, military-grade equipment, coordinated assault patterns. This is not some random pirate raid. Someone planned this extensively. But why?" The Valkyrin's eye stalks swiveled nervously. "What is the objective? Educational facilities have minimal valuable resources. The strategic value is negligible, unless the point is not resources," Emma finished. "Unless the point is the message. Hit a council institution, demonstrate vulnerability, create fear. Classic terrorist playbook." She stopped at an intersection, held up one hand. Everyone froze. Wait. Varnkoth's hearing was decent, but he detected nothing. Emma apparently heard something else entirely. She motioned them back, pressed against the wall, and waited. 3 hostiles rounded the corner. 15 seconds later, they made it approximately 2 meters before Emma moved. This time she used the confined space, the surprise, the fact that they were looking forward instead of checking their flanks. It was over before Varnkoth could even properly register what happened. One moment, armed hostiles, next moment, unconscious bodies and Emma collecting their weapons. "You are not even breathing hard," Quilix observed, the statement somehow accusatory. "Conditioning," Emma said, distributing the collected rifles to herself. She kept all 3. "Earth gravity is brutal. We train heavy. Fight light. Makes everything easier." She checked the weapons charge levels, nodded with satisfaction. "Okay, security station is 2 levels up. If we can reach it, we can lock down this sector and call for actual military response." "If we can reach it," Varnkoth repeated. "You anticipate obstacles?" "I anticipate everything," Emma said. "Keeps me alive." They moved upward through maintenance shafts that Emma somehow knew existed, climbed ladders that most species found challenging while Emma practically floated up them, squeezed through access panels that scraped armor paint off unconscious hostiles but which Emma navigated like she was made of liquid. The security station was 3 corridors away when everything fell apart. Not tactically, not strategically, personally. They rounded a corner and found hostages. 20, maybe 30 beings from a dozen species, hands bound, kneeling in a corridor while armed guards stood watch. The hostages included faculty members, Varnkoth recognized, students from other departments, station personnel who had just been doing their jobs when armed terrorists decided today was a good day for violence. Emma stopped, went very, very still. "Okay," she said quietly. "New plan." "New plan?" Quilix hissed. "What new plan? There are too many. Even you cannot. Watch me." And then Emma did something that Varnkoth would spend years trying to explain to colleagues who refused to believe it. She walked into the corridor, just walked, openly, carrying 3 rifles like they were academic texts, moving toward armed hostiles, who immediately swung weapons toward this new threat. "Hey!" Emma called out, voice cheerful, completely casual. "Sorry to interrupt. Quick question. Are you planning to shoot hostages, or is this just standard intimidation protocol?" The lead hostile's helmet turned toward her. "Stay back." Drop your weapons. This is your only warning. Right. Sure. Makes sense, Emma said, still walking forward. Except here is the thing. You are holding my classmates. My professor. People I actually kind of like. And I really, genuinely do not want to do this the hard way, because the hard way involves lots of screaming and significant property damage. So how about you all just put down the weapons, let these people go, and we call it a day. Everyone goes home, nobody gets hurt worse than they already are. The hostile laughed. Actually laughed. You are alone. We are 10 armed soldiers. The tactical math does not favor. Emma shot him. Not to kill, just to disable. The energy bolt took him in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. Then she moved, and what happened next was less combat and more controlled demolition. She used the environment. Used the fact that hostiles could not shoot freely without hitting hostages. Used corners, cover, the split-second hesitation that came from facing someone who moved like physics was negotiable. Used every advantage her Deathworld evolution had provided. Every second of military training, every adaptation that came from surviving on a planet that wanted its inhabitants dead. 10 hostiles, 45 seconds. When it ended, Emma stood in the center of the corridor, breathing hard now, surrounded by unconscious or groaning bodies, holding one rifle that was probably out of charge. The hostages stared at her with expressions ranging from horror to awe to complete incomprehension. Emma lowered the weapon. Everyone okay? Anyone seriously injured? A Menturi professor managed to click out a response. You, single-handedly. Entire squad. Yeah, sorry about the noise, Emma said, moving to cut bindings. Really tried to keep it quiet. These zip ties are Throxian manufacture, right? Okay, they suck at knots. Hold still. Van Koth finally remembered how legs worked, and stumbled forward with his students. Miss Torres. That was... You just... I know, Emma said, freeing the last hostage. Excessive force, probably violated 17 protocols, definitely going to need therapy after this. But everyone's alive, nobody got shot in the face, so I am calling it a win. She checked her remaining weapon charge. Security station is close. We get there, lock this down, wait for actual military response. Sound good? Nobody argued. Mostly because everyone was too shocked to form words. They reached the security station 3 minutes later. Emma overrode the systems using codes she absolutely should not have known, locked down the compromised sectors, and triggered the emergency beacon that would summon Council military forces. Then she sat down heavily against a wall, finally showing signs of fatigue. You know what the funny thing is, Emma said to nobody in particular. I came here to study xenobiology. Just wanted to understand other species better. Maybe make some friends. Learn about the universe, she laughed, the sound slightly unsteady. Instead, I spent my first semester reminding everyone why Deathworld species are classified as potentially hazardous. Quilix approached slowly, carefully. I owe you an apology. Multiple apologies. Perhaps an entire dissertation's worth of apologies. Nah, Emma said. You were scared. Fear makes people say stupid things. I get it. Still, Quilix's plates chimed softly. You saved us. Saved everyone. Despite our prejudices, despite our treatment of you, despite every reason you had to simply save yourself. Emma shrugged. Class ended. War began. Didn't have time to hold grudges. She looked up at the assembled students, faculty, rescued hostages. Besides, you are my classmates. That means something where I come from. We look out for each other, always. Council military arrived 18 minutes later. They found a secured sector, neutralized hostiles, rescued hostages, and one very tired human sitting against a wall while 3 dozen aliens tried to explain what had happened. The reports would circulate for months. The security footage would become legendary. Recruitment for human exchange programs would increase by 3,000%. But in that moment, in that security station, Van Koth simply looked at Emma Torres and understood something fundamental. Deathworld species were not dangerous because they were violent or aggressive or uncivilized. They were dangerous because they survived, because they adapted, Because when everything went wrong and civilized beings froze in terror, Deathworld survivors just did what needed doing. So, Emma said eventually, does this count as extra credit? Because I really need to boost my grade in advanced cellular biology. Varnkov laughed. He could not help it. The absurdity, the relief, the sheer overwhelming reality of having survived. Miss Torres, he said, I believe we can arrange something. Cool, Emma said, closing her eyes. Because honestly, I am way too tired to study right now. Quilix's plates made a sound like wind chimes in gentle breeze. Laughter, Varnkov realized. Actual laughter. You know what, human? I think I would actually enjoy sharing a drink with you, once the trauma subsides. Yeah, Emma agreed. That sounds nice. Really nice. And somehow, despite everything, despite the violence and terror and near-death experiences, Varnkov thought that maybe, just maybe, the cultural exchange program was actually working. Just not quite how the council had intended.